Hey everybody, and welcome back home to the 1v1 podcast. I am your host Vlhadus, and today I have a very special guest. I have one of the most talkative members of Axiom here.
I would say that's very true.
uh, here is Leukael. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm really happy that because I think out of all the Axiom members, your approach in the MMO genre and how you take and I guess how you just look at it is very different from like my point of view. It's very different from a lot of people's point of view, which is why you have to kind of explain yourself most of the time. Where does that come from? Just curious.
Well, it depends on the game, right? And then
Mhm.
the other thing is like I've been playing games since I was very, very little, so I feel like I have a perspective. Like I grew up with it. My older brothers, I'm from a really big family, and my older brothers were into it, so I was kind of like born into it,
Mhm.
and so I have a little bit different perspective. And then also just working like professionally in like big industries, like when I think about games that I'm passionate about, I want them to be financially successful as well as be successful like a game I enjoy, but I want them to make money so they keep making things I enjoy. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I have this like weird juxtaposition of like what I want out of a game, and then I'm like, but please still make it so other people that aren't like me like it. Because I know I'm not the main demographic, you know?
No, for sure, for sure. I think with the MMO genre right now, and I've said this in a lot of my 1v1s, but I feel like it's just rapidly approaching to this very single player mentality, and um it makes the whole atmosphere, like if you're an MMO gamer, just very dull, and it almost feels like lifeless in a sense. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's just my personal
Yeah.
sentiments.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're going with that because I feel like over time the MMO genre, when it got really popular, it was all about trying to make it so that everybody could play it, and
Right.
it really focused on once it got going. I think like initially there was like this need in the development of it to make it challenging, and then after that they shifted because I think they got that down really well. They
Hmm.
shifted to making it so it was approachable, and
Okay.
I think in the shift to being approachable and catering to a larger demographic, they made a lot of the experience leading up to end content very solo driven, right? And I think that's where it feels like you said, like kind of lifeless. Is like
Right.
you don't have to interact with other people, and it's called an MMO for a reason. Like some of the most
Right.
fun things and memories that anybody ever has from an MMO, you're never going to hear them talk about their level 1 quest that they did unless it was a
Right.
shared experience or like a cultural stable. Like everybody knows Hogger, everybody knows, I don't know, like there's these hallmarks. Everybody knows Baron's chat. That's the kind of thing. But again, those things in a vacuum, it's because everyone else responds to it. It's the interconnectedness of it. It's not the experience on its own, right?
Right. I think it's, for me, like I always sound like I'm a WoW Andy. Like, so I was born and raised in WoW when it comes to the MMO genre. And there's been so many other people that have, kind of expanded their horizons. I didn't expand my horizon until kind of late in my WoW career, because I was just kind of, I was happy initially, of course, but then I settled. Like as WoW got more popular and as the expansions grew on, my sort of sentiments is just like it became just a habit. Like I did it literally out of habit, not because I enjoyed it. Towards the end, I absolutely hated it. It was like doing something you literally hate, but it's so comfortable to you. Like it's so, like, I understand the whole reason of like toxic relationships and why they go on for so long, because sometimes it's just comfortable. Like even though to other people it seems like, why would you be with this person? It's just, you know.
See, I have a different take. The reason you're with that person is because they have really good friends. And that's why MMOs are
Mm,
successful, is the social connection.
that is
And that's
also
why I
true.
don't understand. Well, I get why they started off trying to develop solo play, especially
Hmm.
as an entry point for games, so you don't have to coordinate with your friends, right?
Hmm.
But I feel like there needs to be the swing back to now as an industry, they've really gotten down the whole okay, we've really made it so anybody can come in and play by themselves. Now there needs to be a shift in MMOs to, okay, now how do we balance that against interconnectedness and socializing? Because I feel like in the push to make things accessible, they have alienated the social interdependency. And what I mean by that is like think about it, like WoW is a great example. Think about Raid Fighter. Think about Looking for Group. do you really have to socialize with the people you queue up with? You
No.
don't have to do that anymore. You don't even have to leave a city. You can be standing in the same spot, log in and out every day that you play that game and never get to know anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, I think they've got those mechanisms down, and I think they need to do like a little bit of a cost benefit analysis as to what kind of game the next MMO wants to be, because I think WoW is a great like vanilla ice cream. Like it scratches the itch, it gets it done. But I think there's a need for games to move back to the roots of it being interconnected and a little more interdependent. That doesn't mean you have to throw out the soloableness. You just need to incentivize group play and really meaningful interactions as well.
I guess for me, it's the sink cost fallacy that always gets me, right? It's like when you play something for 15 years and earned so much digital information on an account, and just to say, yeah, I'm not doing that no more. Like, you know, I did all these things and it's just now going to sit digitally somewhere, you know, collecting digital dust. I think that's why for when I did quit, you know, for Shadowlands, like I came back for like a little bit and then I quit again. It's just like, because I missed my tunes. I missed, like, when I play an MMO, the most important thing to me when it comes to MMO is class design and rotation and the visceralness of combat. And WoW has really good combat, really good class design. I think it's going to get better with Dragonflight, but I have no interest anymore. Like, my whole Blizzard Warcraft relationship has kind of sailed for me because I just feel so apathetic to it. Like, I will play it. Like, I know right now there's people in Axiom that are playing World of Warcraft, and, you know, that's great. Like, I'm glad that people are finally, you know, playing a game with some kind of group dynamic that people can do, because I know that's what we're looking for mainly. But it's just, I don't know.
For me, it's not really, like, class design matters, right? So you have to be able to play a game the way you want to,
right? And
it has to feel good to do it. But for me, class design also implies like some sort of definition against the other classes. So to me, it's not so, I guess in my head, it's not strictly the class itself, but it's also how it stacks up against others. And it's not to say one's better than one another, but where does one shine versus where another one does, right?
Right.
And to me, that still goes back to interconnectedness. Like, to be able to do well at something, you have to have someone alongside you who needs that thing, who doesn't. You fill a part that they don't. You fill a gap that they don't, right?
Right.
So, and that's where I think, like, that doesn't become valuable or noticed with people you just randomly queue up for in a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's like, I think it would be more interesting to reward people. Like, for instance, WoW is a great example. Like, in BC, I remember doing the heroic dungeons and the speed at which you could do those things, and based on the class composition and the people you played with. Like, I had like a regular crew, and whenever the tank was out sick or traveling for work or whatever, we picked up another one randomly. We're like, hey, we'll carry you. And they're like, sure, I'll do it. And they're like, man, I want to be with you guys all the time. But it's because we had everything down pat. You know what I mean? Like, and based on our CC, based on our spec, like I can't remember what the last DPS was, but I was a holy priest with improved spirit. I had an infliction warlock and a frost mage. So that was really early on. Mm-hmm. And then we'd pick up a random tank until we got a regular one. And then the last DPS, I can't remember who we settled on, but we pretty much took different people from our guild group, right? But we knew, like, who was gonna get polymorphed, who was gonna get whatever curse, you know. I knew if I had to mind control something on a pole, I knew where I needed to stand relative to the tank, so things would path onto him once they were silenced or whatever. Right. Like, all of that kind of coordination that comes with familiarity playing with someone, I just feel like is lost because it's not needed in the state of the game anymore in MMOs. It's not really about that anymore. It's more about, I don't know. It's just not that.
No,
it's not that.
It's true.
It wasn't that it was game breaking, right? Everybody had CC, but like, that familiarity where you leveraged everybody's kit and used it well made a faster, better result. That reward for working with a team and getting to know them really well just isn't in a game anymore.
Well, I think it is going to be in Dragonflight. It looks like some of their talent, I mean, they still have a lot to restructure with their new talent system, like kind of putting back talent trees into the game. So just to kind of go a little backwards for a second,
Uh-huh.
what are all the MMOs that you've played like in your whole
Oh, geez.
MMO? So because like for me, I'm a pretty one note dude, right? I had dabbled into like SWTOR. I did play Final Fantasy 14, but WoW is it was the thing that encompassed everything for me. But what was
Well,
it
I'm
like for
gonna
you?
take it back one further step. So I played Mud for a really, really long time when I was like really young, before like when Razorburn was the new thing. But Muds are basically MMOs before they had video, and it was all text based, and you looked like you were like hacking way back in the day, like when Hackers was a movie.
Oh my
And
god, okay.
yeah, and I built and designed in that and all that kind of stuff. So I was like I said, I was raised on video games like very young. I remember
Wow,
Ultima
okay.
when it was on 12 floppy disks and all that kind of jazz.
Oh my god.
I remember the original Final Fantasy before it had a number, because it was made around the time I was born, or maybe before.
Right.
But like my brothers had it, so I played it when I grew up. You know what I mean? Like, so I grew up
Wow.
with this culture of gaming. But I played MMOs before they were, and I played very PvP centric. And the Mud I played was very PvP centric, which is really kind of interesting, because then I played WoW and it was very PvE focused.
Right.
And then I've played other MMOs, like I played a little bit of EverQuest. I played a good bit of Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14. But I mean, WoW was always my main squeeze. Like, I mean, hands down. Like BC and vanilla were like my prime time. Like BC's hands down my favorite, without
Really?
question. Oh, absolutely. Burning Crusade is amazing. I think like
Interesting. Okay.
I think that's when heroic dungeons were exciting, challenging. Class design was, everything was different, but like I said, that's where I go back to that design where, based on the class you brought, every pull that you wouldn't be able to do something, but one of the pulls in the heroic dungeon, someone of some spec would have a value. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was like based on who you had, you just had to pivot, and that care and level of design attention just isn't there anymore in my mind.
No, you're totally right. And like I said,
And
that's why
positioning, like knowing
Yeah.
where to stand as a healer so that all the mobs path onto the tank, so they don't have to go to get them. Sounds really simple and easy now, or not like a big deal. But back then, you didn't have all the mechanisms that you do now to like scoop them up. Not everybody had a pull or whatever else, you know?
Right. I mean, it was a very different landscape back then. And even playing like the Project Ascension game that I was telling you about, like it goes through like, Burning Crusade, but now it's in Wrath, which is kind of nuts, because Wrath to me was sort of where it got more fun for me. And I know like in hindsight, a lot of people think like, no, Burning Crusade had so much more to offer. Like, I don't really have a horse in that race either way. I just remember when I was playing WoW, like Wrath was that golden age, and was the first time I ever started raiding. I technically started raiding in TOC, the Trial of Champion, and I was like, it was not a good first raid experience, because that raid to me was really garbage. But then Ice Crown.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the finest hour.
No, for sure. And
down.
the raid tier sucked. Like I was like, the raid tier, it was like the cloth, the leather, the mail, and the plate people all had the same looking gear, just different colors. I was like, what is this? Like as soon as I start playing, they just start making it all crap. So
to me, BC was where I feel like design hit a great note.
mm-hmm.
To me, Wrath is where storytelling and lore, like I feel like that was the peak, was
Right.
Wrath, and I feel like
Right.
the design peak was BC. I fell off in Wrath mainly because healing design. I played a Holy Priest. Spamming Circle of Healing over and over again was boring. So, and that was like a smart target 6-person heal that you could do on a relatively short cooldown. So it just
Right.
And I love healing because it's like a lot of split-second decisions. And as a Holy Priest, you have 80 tools. So it's all about picking the right one at the right time. I
not wrong.
live for that. I live for that. I love it. But I don't like when the answer is always the same thing.
Right. No, for sure.
So, but yeah, to answer your question, I've played a lot of MMOs. WoW has always been my main squeeze. I'm personally looking forward to Ashes, and I started before MMOs had pictures.
Well, and that's the thing. I was talking to Kadaja, last week on our last 1v1, that I feel like more people need to play like Dungeons and Dragons, like tabletop Dungeons and Dragons.
I grew up on that stuff. Like, if you don't know your roots. You know?
And for me, like I did play that, and the thing is that what I feel like a lot of people have gotten around to, it's like asking a seasoned dungeon master to sorry, Kona distracted me.
No, you're fine.
It's like asking a seasoned dungeon master to be like, hey, can we do like a completely brand new campaign that I've never played D&D before, and can we do it like in 30 minutes, because like I'm kind of like, you know, I need to get somewhere soon. Like, it's just like, it's not feasible. Like, you know, you maybe creating your character can take 30 minutes if you rush it, but I mean, I think most people need to kind of slow down their roll a little bit, because I think Ashes is kind of take a lot of old school notes, you know, and it's going to be kind of slowed down to where people want it to be. Like, they're not saying that everything is going to be at a turtle crawl, but there are a lot of features, a lot of things that are going to be more group focused, more player driven, and it's going to be slower. Like, you're not going to just, you know, like leveling isn't going to take you 8 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours. You're not, it's going to be physically impossible if they keep their current, you know, set on it.
I feel like in theory I'm excited for that. I know there's a part of me that once I get there, I know when I get there, you're gonna hear me say some things I'm not excited about, like when I'm not where I want to be in my brain. But I feel like they've been so upfront about it that, like, I don't know. I feel like if you're well informed, and I think that's the trick, they're just going to communicate the expectation well. Whether people hear it or not, that's their own problem, like, at that point. But I like the idea of working for a longer term reward. I just hope my PTO at work will carry me through so I'm efficient. That's all I'm worried about. I'm like, please let me know several months in advance, and please don't do it in January so I have some time to rack it up. Like, if we could get it midway through the year, Steven, if you're listening, I would love to have accumulated some of it for the year, not have to borrow. But yeah, I don't know. I like working for stuff, and I like leveling, and I like social interdependency as well as like class mechanical interdependency. I do think there's a balancing point, like, again, that perspective you talked about. I think they do need to make social play or solo play viable. But I think the trick is or the discussion we've already had is that, like, I feel like that's a given in the MMO space right now. I think the challenge is balancing, incentivizing team play against it so that people that are WoW Andies that maybe are used to being able to solo quest, exactly, can play the game and achieve the same level or relatively same level of success in leveling, but not de-incentivize group play, because I have the slightest impression that certain classes that are more support based are there's not going to be a way for them to meaningfully level relative to others, like, as quickly. Like, you can't heal things to death, right? So, or you can't tank things to death. So in my head, like, my thought process is I'm hoping that they're going to create some sort of incentive to playing with those characters that will have a slower go at it, right? Or they'll think of some ingenious way, like, I think, like, buffs that you cast on yourself that are of mechanically more value to someone else but helps, like, a support class. That's what I call tanks and healers and stuff. Like, a buff they cast on themselves that's, like, kind of valuable to them, but not really. But when they cast it on someone else, it's more valuable. You know what I mean? Like, my example would be, like, in alpha, the mages had regen, which cuts down on downtime, right? For them. But in, like, a long PvE experience, for healers is, like, incredibly valuable, probably because they have a mana management game, right? That's where my head kind of goes, where you have a buff that you carry with yourself that enables solo play, or, you know, solo questing when you have to. But in a game environment, like a team environment, it's more valuable on somebody else, because that helps that interdependency that we talked about. That would be really great to reward group play from a mechanical sense.
And it's so funny because it's almost like the opposite in WoW. Everybody, like, and I understand, because I don't know if you know the whole PI thing for priests. Like,
I am currently online on my Holy Priest. I know all about it.
So a lot of people want PI removed for Dragonflight. They do not like the fact that as a Shadow Priest, or just as a priest in general, you're basically having to give away your big cooldown. They wanted to keep it for themselves. So it's really weird, right? Because I understand what you're saying, and I think that's good. But right now in WoW, a lot of people hate it. Like, I have yet to see really anybody be a proponent for saying I like the fact that I give away my PI. Like I've never heard anybody say that.
I like people being happy that I'm in a group, and I like that I bring value to help other people. Again, I am like I always say, like, in my life and in my gaming, I'm a support through and through. Like I always play something that enables other people to succeed. So,
Right.
and that's why I say, again, I'm a really odd duck. So I'm probably the only person that feels right. But I like the idea that I bring something that everybody else is like, oh my God, can I have it? Now, I don't like the ensuing you can't have it thing, but I
Right.
feel like after a certain number of years playing a game, you learn how to tell people, hey, listen, they mechanically get more out of this than you. No
Right.
offense. It's not that I hate you. If
Right.
they're not here and you're here, if you're the next one in line that makes sense to give it to, I'm going to give it to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like when you queue up for looking for raid or something, and your besties with you, you're like, yeah, I'm going to give you PI. You know,
No, right.
like that's the kind of thing I like. That I like propping people up. But
I think for me, it's like if you look at the WoW specific example of PI, just don't, if you are a holy or discipline priest, you can give PI to others. If you're a shadow priest, it's your buff. Like that's kind of like how I see it, because a shadow priest, in my opinion, is a DPS. I mean, it really is. It's not meant to be a utility spec. It's meant to do damage. So
I think context matters there.
What do you mean?
Is what I would say. Like if you're queuing up looking for a raid and somebody's looking at damage meters and they're kicking people,
right,
keep it for yourself, right?
Oh, right.
But if you're like in a team environment that you play with people regularly and they know that you're giving it away, so you're taking a DPS hit, and it's going to someone that helps you win the game,
right? Then
if you have a good leader who knows that, then I mean, I would give it away if I was not in a situation, so long as they didn't be like, oh, you didn't make enough DPS, goodbye. I'd be like, bro, I'm giving away my buff. Right. You told me to. I'm being a team player.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's what feels gross to, I think, specifically the shadow priests, because as a healer, right? Like you're healing, like, you know what I mean? You kind of don't need like that additional haste, right? So it's to feel that more utility in that, like, I choose you to like put my PI on, or like we dictate this person for the PI.
But you gotta think too, like other games I play in that regard. Like I made Mercy in Overwatch. I love my blue beam, and I love that everybody wants it, and I love that I can enable other people to succeed when I do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like those situations, but I realize I'm probably like the only one that does.
And it's all going to be in testing. I think once we actually get in there, and I think we've talked about it before, but like I always feel like I would love a lot more of the utility to go towards the summoners and the bards, and have very limited utility for the other DPS classes. Because I want those summoners and bards to be needed. Like if you don't have a bard or a summoner in your group, like you're missing out like on a lot,
Yeah, that's interesting. So I like the idea that every class that's not like a primary buff support class has a buff that enables them better in solo play. Like my example would be like if you're a DPS, you might have something that helps you recover faster when not in combat or something, because they don't have heals, right? Or a healer has something that increases their damage when they put it on themselves, but it's of more value to someone else, or a crit or whatever, what I mean? But you would give that away to the other person when you're in a group context, because that makes everybody, the interplay, more meaningful. It makes you guys excited to play with each other. But it also solves the problem of when you do have to solo play as like a support style character, you have a buff that increases your ability to do damage. The balancing point would be like PvP, you'd have to make it probably something that works like on creatures and not on PvP. That'd be a little nuanced there. But like the other thing that I would say on that is those would be like static buffs. The thing I like, or where my head goes for like bards and summoners, is theirs are, I see their buffs as significant that are tied to their abilities. So like landing a skill shot on a bard has a meaningful buff that you feel like a punch to it, versus the static mana regen buff, right? So like if they hit their skill shot, it creates a hot that then either hits for a good amount, or a regen spike in mana, or gives rogues more energy or whatever resource they're going to have, right? Or a cooldown reduction for the party, right? That's where my head goes for them, is that it's a part of their gameplay and not like a static buff what the other people in the group might have, because I feel like those should be more background, and I want the support classes to be like when they transfer their buff. Yeah, I want everybody else to be the backup singers. Like the buff classes are Beyonce.
Right. Well, here's my thing. Like, and Final Fantasy 14 does this, I think, very well, because there are certain buffs. I would say it's more debuffs, I should say. So like as a ninja in Final Fantasy 14, my major cooldown used to apply, I don't know if it still does, I haven't played Final Fantasy in a bit, but it used to apply for the entire raid a 5% damage increase for 10 seconds. So, and that affect everybody. So if I just used it when I wanted to, like that's going to be bad for the group. Because if we can align our CDs to then say, hey, like hit it just like Bloodlust, right? We want to wait for Bloodlust to execute that. Similar for the ninja, like you don't want to use your major cooldown whenever it's up. You want to use it in conjunction with when the raid needs it. And I actually like that. Like I think you're not like as a ninja, you're not purposefully putting that buff on them. It just applies to the monster, and everybody gets that benefit. And I think that's a really nice way to keep it fair, right? To where it's like no one feels like they're missing out on it. So.
Well, and that's kind of a good illustration of the difference is the way I would like to see the support classes be relative to their buffs to like the other classes is like Prayer, Fortitude, and Intellect. That's the non-support classes. You know, Bloodlust, that's the support classes. When they land their skill shot, you're all of a sudden your attack speed's really fast. And then the next time they do a skill, you see it in the background, all of a sudden the mana is up and the energy region's up. The next hit, all of a sudden you can move crazy fast or something. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of thing I want to see from like bards in particular. Summoners, I'm not really sure, but I don't know. I would have to learn more about them. I feel like they're a little shrouded in mystery, so I don't know about them yet.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the thing too, is like I love in WoW the Warlock. Like Demonology Warlock is my jam. Like that's what I do. And I love it. And with, you know, a summoner, like I think, oh, like can we actually like summon like different kind of entities and feel like I can feel like a Demonology Warlock or even maybe like a Necromancer, right? Like the Necromancer traditionally has like skeletons you summon, and you like summon the Void and Void Bolts and Necromancy or diseases. Like I'm down for all of that. But I think, you know, we've had a discussion many times about the 64 class system. I think people are ultimately gonna be disappointed with, if they keep it as is, they're gonna be disappointed for what Intrepid actually puts out, because I don't think it's going to be as detailed as people are thinking it's going to be. But hey, I hope I'm wrong. Like I really hope Intrepid can knock it out of the park. It's just, I don't know.
The thing I hope for summoners is I hope they're like the gap filler, if you will. I hope that like what I would like them to do is to be unique in that they can kind of fill in for other people. So if you need a tank and they want to, they can summon a tanking pet. Now, I don't think it should be near as effective, but I think it should be able to, you should be able to make do if the rest of the team is kind of optimized, if that makes sense. Like I would love for them to be a good damage or a good support or a good healer or a good tank, depending on how they want to build it.
Right.
Because I think like right now, the only thing I'm really concerned about in the game is, from a design perspective, is they only have one tank class per se, like a primary.
Yes.
So like I really hope, and same thing with the healer,
one healer.
right?
I was gonna say, yeah. One healer.
I mean, I think they've hinted that Bard might have healing abilities, but I've only heard it very roundabout spoken of. So I don't know how much that's going to be the case. But like, so that's why I'm hoping that maybe the summoner is the answer to that concern. That there's somebody who like, I think in the design, the trick is, regardless of archetype, that they have the ability to shift gears, but they just have one spot where they're better than other summoners.
Right.
That's where I would like them to have them go, because I think it would alleviate a lot of concerns. And then the other thing is, if somebody's like, I don't know what I want to play, I want to do a little bit of everything, there's literally a class for you. You know?
No, for sure.
That would be awesome.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like the summoner, I always thought, wouldn't it be cool if like the bards basically buff like the DPS people, and then like the summoner basically DPS like the healer and tanks. So it's kind of like, but because like I thought to myself again, I was like, well, there's only two. Like like if you were a summoner, it's like you can only buff the clerics and the tanks. But then as a bard, you can like basically buff everything else. Like, so it really just depends. Like honestly, the more I look at the 64 class system, the more worried I get personally on it, because I don't think it can work at a fundamental level, and I don't think it's expandable. So it loses on both fronts for me. So again, I could be wrong. Maybe, like I said, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but just as I see it, And as I'm learning more and more about this class system, I don't know if it's going to be as enticing to me as, let's say, like WoW. Like,
Yeah, I
so
don't think it's going to be as deep as that, but I think with it not being as, and this is just my assumption. I mean, I don't know anything. I'm
right.
not PI or anything like that. But what I would think is that it's going to determine like energy types. You know, like if you're a tank and you go mage, then you have the ability to do an elemental type damage. And there will be some procs that might vary and that kind of stuff in the choices you make. Like I think he said like charge, you could do a path of fire, or you could teleport and it turned the charge into a stun or something. Like
Right.
those kind of choices I feel like are meaningful. And when you think of the game, when they mention seasons, and there's obviously going to be like, I feel like there's an inferred energy resistance gameplay that's going to be in there.
Right.
I feel like it's going to make a significant difference in where you excel versus someone else. I don't think it's going to be game breaking, but I also kind of like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I like that if I'm like a lightning tank and everybody's going fire tank or just damage tank, that people have a harder time with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I picked a niche that doesn't give me an advantage anywhere because I don't have a distinct advantage. I overall am a more of a threat. Like I think those nuances are going to be meaningful, and I could see them very easily later building it out because they didn't commit too deep into a design path. They just made it so you can get a little more CC or a different energy type that you get to play with, or you can mitigate a type of damage better than someone else. That means they can expand those things out later after that.
Right. I mean, and like I said, I could be wrong on a lot of those things personally. Like I just feel a sense of hesitation when it comes to the 64 class system, but at the same time, like I am sure they've been working and iterating on those systems for a while. I mean, recently we just found out from Steven in Discord that, you know, the node types for all four of the node types and all the systems inside, you know, are pretty much done. And now we're just sort of waiting to, you know, they're just still internally testing and making sure that what they have put in the game and what they are testing is likable. So I could be wrong. Like I said, there's a lot of things that, you know, and there people are speculating, you know, are they further along than we think they are? I've been saying that for a long time. You know, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I hope so. So I'm definitely one of your dissenting opinions, so thinks it's going to take longer than people expect. But if I'm wrong, I will be like, you're recording this. I want it on record. I will be so thrilled to be so wrong. Like
Right.
if you are absolutely 100% right, and it happens like, I don't know, Q1 next year,
Right.
I would be over the moon. I'd be like, I'm wrong. I would shout it from the mountains and be happy as the day is long. But
Right.
I think them testing it though, that's the weird thing that I feel like is kind of hard to gauge with them. Is
Mhm.
after Alpha 1, it just kind of felt like UE5 happened, and then sorry, my dog is whining, so ignore that. He's
you're
fine.
fine.
He's just missing the other person who lives in my house.
Yeah,
They walked out. But so like the big thing is with UE5, and they keep details close to themselves, close
Right.
to the vest. It's hard to guess where they're at. And then when Stephen does mention some things on podcasts, he is very careful with his words. And if you listen, like sometimes he's like, we have it planned out on paper. And then he says we're done, but we're testing it. It's like, okay, they have the node types, but how many nodes do they have built out, or how much of the world do they have done? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
there's all these like little inferences and details when he leaves out that it's like, how far are they? I hope they're further than what I think they are. Like, I really do, but I don't know. And it's just one of those things where it's like, whenever it happens, it's like waiting for Christmas. Like, I'll be glad when it's here, and I can't wait for it.
And this is just, you know, something I feel like is going to happen in this July's live stream. I think they're going to finally show us this updated map of Vera, because again, I feel like if they were testing it internally for a while and realized this isn't working, like this map, it looks good on paper, it does not play well, or it does not intersect the way we were thinking it would intersect in the game. And so we kind of need to redesign this, because again, with how the nodes work and how they are ever changing, they may have came across some things that just didn't feel good as a gamer. So I'm really hoping they show us that, because that's going to give us a really good indication. I honestly hope the map is a little smaller. I know that may like be like, what? No.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I hard disagree. But
yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are like that, but I just think having a smaller map is not going to kill the game. It's not going to be bad. I think the map as it currently stands is super duper huge. And again, we only have like, I think Steven said we're between 10 to 15,000 per server. So if it always feels like no matter what area you're in, you're playing by yourself, that doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? So if it was a little bit smaller, like I said, I'm not saying like I don't want it 30% smaller, like maybe 5% smaller, just a tad bit smaller, or maybe just a little bit, maybe they could rejigger it in a way that's like the same size, but it feels smaller because they made it different. I don't know. They can do a ton of things.
So the way I look at it is so my theory on it is that it's a balancing path. So they've plotted out the map and they either have completed it or they've gotten to a design phase where they've decided how the nodes will function, right? And they've tested them out. But they did a balancing review of the composition of the map. So like how many nodes are adjacent water, how many nodes are desert, and etc.
Right.
And I think they're doing a balancing pass where they're trying to equalize the value of each region. So I think what you're going to see is not a massive shift in the map changing entirely, but rather you might see some bodies of water come in, or you might see more biome diversity. Because when you look at the map, it looks like there's very much themes in different areas. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to see spots where you get some variance where there wasn't before. So that everybody, so one area, so every server doesn't congregate around this one area because it's equidistant to diversity of biomes. That's what I think it is. I could be totally wrong though.
That sounds right to me, actually. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things they can do for what they want to do, the redesign of the map. And I think that's not going to be a big ask of them, right? Just to be like, hey, we updated the map. Here it is. This is the reason why we changed it. And they could say literally everything you just said, and it would make total sense to me.
Yeah, that's my likely guess. But then your comment about the size of the map.
Right.
The reason I like the size of the map, and this is a very recent example playing New World, the end game content in that game is going to, in some ways, mirror Ashes, right?
In some ways, yeah.
And like PvP and node control, that kind of thing, like that theme is there, right?
Right.
And one of the things that was really striking about New World is they didn't have a population cap on a server, first of all. So any number of people could play on it or make a character, I guess.
I did not know. But the other
thing, I'm pretty sure they didn't have a cap. I mean, they started, well, let me say, when they launched, everybody could make a character. There was a queue time and stuff like that, but they eventually like started locking servers down, but it was after the gate was open, right? The floodgates were open. But the thing to take away from that was it's the population size versus the node is the concern. So to me, having more nodes is valuable because it allows more people to access the intended end game content. Like think about content per person. That's also why I like that their node, like city sieges or whatever, are going to be larger scale because it, again, allows more people to participate. Because you have to think about it when you design a game where a large part of the end game is PvP based on contending over resources. The more instances you have of that, the more opportunity people have to engage in it.
Right.
So that's where my head goes, where I like it kind of big. And then the other thing is, like, I've got to be honest, I played an alpha and they said that was a more sparse, what do you call it? A more sparse for as far as nodes go per size. And I saw plenty of activity. You know what I mean? And I wasn't even the same time zone as everybody. And I feel like alpha was a lot smaller.
Are you referring to New World's alpha or to alpha or the Ashes?
Sorry, I'm talking about Ashes alpha when I talk about this.
No, it's okay.
But when I played Ashes, that's a good point. In Ashes alpha, when I played, the node density is supposed to be a little bit more than what we experienced in alpha.
Right.
And I saw plenty of activity. I kind of like that there were some places, especially when you're first building nodes, that felt remote. And then you've got to think when people develop nodes, people are going to gravitate towards them because it's going to build up more content. So it almost creates this organic flow of population, right?
Right.
So there are going to be places that feel more desolate because they're not as developed, and there should be places that have more content. So more people are going to be there because different levels can engage. Right. So I feel like I think it's insanely intelligent how they're creating this flow of population that makes logical sense.
Right.
As well. So I get that feeling of wilderness when I go out way out into the middle of nowhere where nobody wants to be. But then in cities, when they get developed, I see tons of people.
Right. No, and that's all I want. Like and again, I could be wrong. And that's what I'm saying. Like I always preface this is just like initial worry, initial Like, is the map too big? Because again, I always think of like, well, when are we going to be able to get mounts? When are we going to traverse faster? Because I know we're not going to have fast travel, but Steven did say about faster travel, like flight paths, mounts, stuff like that. That's all left to be seen. So I'm not too worried right now, but these are just like average concerns of mine. The one thing I do want to talk about, because I know this is something you're super passionate about and something that I also am super passionate about, is guilds. And there's been a lot of talk, at least in Axiom, and I've seen some posts on the forums and stuff like that about guild size, about the whole like the 50 guilds being created because of player power being potentially in the guild talent tree. Like, what's your whole take on just like guilds in general and why you're passionate about it?
So my big thing is, I feel like if you're gonna have like, I think city sieges are supposed to be like 250 or something like that.
Right.
I feel like having a 300-person guild is very optimistic that you're only gonna ever have 50 people not online. Like, I just take my head back to 40-man raids in
Right.
classic or in vanilla,
Mhm.
and like how many times people are AFK, let
Oh my
alone
God.
how many people aren't online. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, Steven, you are way too optimistic with that number.
Yeah.
But that's also an anti-Zerg mechanic, so I'm kind of for it. I think the thing we don't know that would be the difference maker to me would be how patron guilds function. Because like there's an owner of the city or whatever, but there's patron guilds alongside them.
Right.
I would need to know more about how they functioning in conjunction with the owner of the node to kind of have a. I have a concern, but I hope that mitigates it. Is kind of my view.
Right.
But as far as guilds in general, I hope they have robust tools to manage them, because that's one of the other standouts for New World is like,
Right.
I know because it has a survival element, they didn't have guild storage. I just hope there's storage mechanisms, hope there's ways to track who gives who what in a guild or donates whatever to the bank, takes. I just hope there's an interface there that is more, that's one thing I want, more like WoW and less like New World.
No, right.
But like, I like having to traverse the world. I like travel being meaningful. I liked it in New World, early New World. I didn't mind it at all, because I feel like that game was beautiful, and it's one of the only games that I enjoy gathering and crafting in. And I feel, to its credit, I felt like the scale for how you had to traverse stuff, if you played and had Azoth to travel when you really needed to, it wasn't that bad, really. I'd say the storage mechanism was annoying, but I get why it existed. I think it was a little punitive, but I think it's because they plan to monetize Azoth later if the game kept doing well. I saw that design intent in there.
Right. Guilds, to me, at this day and age, with how readily available Discord is, for how easily accessible like forum posts are now, and just people grouping together, a guild size of 350 is just too small. Like, it's not big enough, especially for Ashes. Like, if we're trying to get the massive back in MMO, we need a bigger guild size limit. And I am a huge, I'm not what is not proponent, but I'm a huge, like, I'm against the idea of guild levels. And as you're leveling your guild, you can add more and more people to your roster, like Lost Ark. I do not want that in Ashes. Let me repeat that. I do not want that in Ashes, because I just think whatever your limit is, which I would want a limit personally of 1,000. I think also we live in a day and age too, where maybe we can actually invite an account. Now, not saying that you can only invite an account to your guild, right? So if I want to be an Axiom and I want all my tunes to be an Axiom, there should be a way to make my account invite to Axiom as a guild, and it counts as one. So if I have 8 tunes, it doesn't count for me 8 times over, because I'm a singular person. I think if you want to be in multiple guilds, right, you should be like a singular guild invite and like an account invite to minimize that like number down. Because I know in WoW, in my old guild, we were always having to delete alts and having to like get like a second guild, which again, no one likes being in the second guild. Like, everybody wants to be in the main guild. And whenever you start separating people because of guild size, it just leaves people like in this less than mentality of like, well, I'm in the second guild because I'm not in the guild with the main GM and all the officers, like, it just is not a good feeling.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think part of that'll be the talent system, though, for guilds. Different guilds within a guild's umbrella, like the sub guilds or whatever,
Right.
will probably be more themed around what you like doing or what you want to do, so that that guild's talent tree can support you. Is where my mind goes.
Right.
But at the same time, I agree. I feel like there needs to be some way to either raise the cap, or maybe there's a way to. There has to be another solution. I think we have to test it to figure it out. I think where the solution lies is in the alliance system, and maybe making that a bit more robust. That's where my head goes. Is I like the idea of an account invite, but I feel like the reason they aren't going for that is there's a lot of espionage in these PvP, contest situations, and if you invite that mechanism, everybody's going to require account invites to mitigate that, because then you can't have one of your account members in a competing guild. Does that make sense? You'd have to literally have 2 subscriptions going to commit espionage, which I mean people would do, but it would lower an instant, right?
Well, I mean,
I think the answer is like leveraging the alliance system and making that like bigger without making the guilds as big, because that way you have something to kind of punish the Zergs. But when you have when a Zerg guild has to have so many guilds, what you're doing is you're making it so you have to have people that you trust to control those other guilds alongside it. And I think that makes it a little harder and a little more unwieldy to like control, if that makes sense. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm sure they have more experience in these kind of games. I bet they have a better solution. Or if we give that feedback during Alpha 2, I think they'll consider it.
No, for sure. And here's the other proponent that I can say too, is we're thinking guilds in this kind of way, right? Like similar to WoW, right? Because that's what we know, or free companies in Final Fantasy 14. But what if Axiom was an alliance, and we think of guilds as subcategories of Axiom? So you know what I mean? So like as an example, everything is so in WoW, it's all off of guild chat, and everything is guild chat related. But in Ashes of Creation, it's all alliance chat. Like so even though you're not in the subcategory guild for Axiom, there is technically no main group, if that makes any sense. There's no main guild.
I think that makes sense because of the talent trees too, because then you'll be Axiom crafters, Axiom PvE, Axiom PvP.
Exactly my point. So that way you can literally be like, oh, well, my tune, I don't really do PvP at all, but I love like doing the gathering profession stuff. So I'm in this like sub guild, but all the main chat is through the alliance chat. There is the
I think that would be great.
Yeah, and there would be a subcategory to talk to the people within your own sub guild of profession people or chat people, like, hey, like I'm trying to find these mats or whatever, so that way you don't interrupt the overall chat that's going on for the entire alliance. But I think if we have that frame of mind, it probably won't feel too bad, because I think what feels terrible is like the way I'm thinking about it is like everything's happening through guild chat, and you feel like you're missing out, and you're also not seeing who's logged on, because if they don't have that extra functionality being like, well, who's in my guild, like who can help me, and there's no functionality to see that in game because you're not in that guild, that's bad. But if it goes through the umbrella of an alliance, then we can see Axiom as not a guild anymore. We are an alliance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think a really elegant solution to that, as far as communication goes, is if they just make the ability to make your own text channels like in WoW. So you can create, or
even that too.
For even the communities thing, instead of calling it that, call it something else, like, I don't know, whatever they want to call it, diplomacy or whatever. But the idea is having some sort of pseudo social connection, and it doesn't have to be that it would be like linking guilds, but just in a comms. But they could also just create custom chat channels. That's the other thing they could do, and it would be a really easy solution, and then they'd empower the players to use those their own. Because I could totally see creating an in-game chat for allies amongst different guilds, then one for our alliance of like all of our Axiom guilds. We have our Axiom alliance chat, and then we have our like diplomacy chat, like where all of our buddies that we've made friends with are friend chat.
As long as we can get to a place that you being in a sub guild doesn't feel like you're missing out on the overall, like, and when you're in alliance, like just like in guild chat, or like when you hit O in World of Warcraft and you see everybody that's all logged on in your guild. When you're in Alliance, you see everybody that's logged on to the Alliance, and you can send party invites, you can whisper them, you can open a trade, you can literally do it. So it does not make you feel less than because you're in group 3 or guild 3 or 6 or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? Like it still feels as cohesive as a guild does in World of Warcraft. If they can pull that off, I think the guild size can stay to 350. It won't be a problem at all. Because just like Steven says, usually big guilds that are over 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000, wherever the case is, it's hard to police that. It's hard to round up all those people and keep them engaged and also keep them from not fighting, right? The infighting is what really gets those big guilds like all the time.
Well, I think the other great thing is the map size that Steven has actually like come to bear, like when is supposedly delivering on, God willing. It like that is going to make it so even the traditionals or guilds they're not going to be able to cover the whole field, right?
Right.
I like the idea that there's going to be like a regional culture, and like everybody's going to know that sword crafter in Silvertown, and like he's the best one for miles, you know, and like everybody knows that person, or everybody knows that staff maker in the next town over makes the best ones, so he has the best prices or whatever. But nobody outside of the region, when they come there, knows. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I love that, and I love that there might be like on the other side of Vera, in the dark corner, there's the Zerg area, and nobody goes there. That's the place the sun doesn't touch.
Yeah,
you know, well, I love that.
No, for sure. I mean, and there's guilds that I've seen on the Ashes recruitment page on the Discord. There was a shipping guild where the whole guild is going to be dedicated to shipbuilding on the server. They're going to be neutral. They're not going to take any sides. They just want to be known to make the best ships on their server. And I think that's really freaking cool. Like, and I love the kind of identity that people are wanting to have in Ashes, because I really don't see that in World of Warcraft. You know, it's all about raids. Like, you make a guild to do raids or to do Mythic Plus. Like,
I mean, that's the other thing I love about this game, because in New World it drove me wild, but factions, you could have people in your faction that you didn't like, and you couldn't do anything about it, except for maybe snipe their deck. Like, there was this one guild called Weenie Hut Jr., and I used to cackle every time. Yeah, they're just as trolly as they sound, their name. But they would declare on the biggest, baddest guild on the server, and it just lit. It was one of those things where it was like somebody thought of a really creative way to screw someone else over, and it was just funny because it was like it was a symptom of a poor design, right? Because they had no recourse. There's nothing they could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still like entertaining, because it's like no matter how big and powerful you are, because of this design choice, they were kind of at their mercy a bit, right?
Right.
And the same went for anybody on one kind of faction. You could behave as badly as you wanted to people in your faction, so long as you're big enough to take care of yourself.
Right.
And it kind of didn't feel good that you had no recourse in what was supposed to be a PvP game, right?
Right.
And to me, in my mind, what I love about an Ashes is there's going to be consequences for your social behavior. You know what I mean? Like, if you're the big and baddest, you want to be big and bad, you can. Right. But like, if you tick everybody else off in your area, you might make yourself a target and not have support when someone bigger around the corner comes knocking. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about Ashes, is that there's this whole
accountability,
diplomacy thing that matters. Just like in WoW with factions and stuff, like it just, you didn't have to worry about how you behaved. But imagine if like anybody could be your enemy. Like, I just love that. It's so much fun.
And coming from a WoW person, that sounds super scary. Because like
it does sound scary, but it also sounds liberating.
No, for sure. And that's what, it's exciting. Like, it gets the blood rushing knowing that someone can turn on you, you know, on a dime. You know what I mean? And but that's why, like, I love the facts of guilds. Not saying a guildie can't betray you or anything like that, but it's way less likely than just some person you met in the forest collecting wood. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it makes guilds, how they behave and who they pick, like, more important too, right? Mm-hmm. Because them carrying your tag implies consequences, and that's really interesting to me.
Yeah,
because it's something that you don't have in WoW, really. Like, there's the servers shard, and you queue up for stuff, and no guild has some massive bad reputation where somebody's going to drop from a looking for group. You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't happen. So to have that mechanism back in a game is just like so exciting.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I've always loved the server accountability, the player accountability, it goes a long way, and it makes toxicity a lot less. Like, it really does. Like, the toxicity back when I played WoW and Burning Crusade, I rarely saw toxicity in trade chat. And I know people might say that's stupid, that's cap or whatever. I'm not lying. I was on Altar of Storms on the PvP side, a PvP server, mind you, and I hardly saw people being toxic to each other in trade chat. Like, people would, I think back in the day we had they would link, you know how everyone links like the Thunder Fury like in trade chat? Back in the day there was this dagger called Dirge, and they would do all the Dirge memes, and or they weren't memes back then, but they would just be like, you know, anal dirge or like, you know, butt dirge, and you know, that was as toxic as the trade chat got, but it was just like for funsies, like, you know what I mean?
Well,
and
that's the interesting thing you said with server identity too. Like when I was in classic, not vanilla, when I tried classic, there was like a warrior tank, because I didn't have a warrior buddy or a tank buddy who played with me when I went into classic. And I remember I met him. He wasn't like a close friend throughout all of it, but I met him and we did a few dungeons really early on together. And I just remember seeing in like area chats and whatever, like him looking for groups, and then chats later where somebody's like, don't group with him, he's bad. And I just remember like earlier on in levels, he was fine. But I think like when you leveled up, like he kind of went the DPS route, thought if you threw on his shield, he could still be a tank. Like that's kind of the story I heard. And then I ended up running with him one time, and like much later, like max level dungeon, I can't remember, probably Strathholm. And I remember talking to him, and he was having a hard time, and I was a healer, so I was trying to help him and stuff. And like I just remember I was like, man, I wish I had bumped into you somewhere midway through and been able to help you.
right.
But like it's that server identity I knew, because he couldn't go on looking for group and just queue for another group. And I heard, just because I was in the area walking by one time, do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you won't get that on WoW anymore. You won't get that on games where you can just queue up for stuff. And it's like, it's just so interesting to have a reputation that follows you. Now, that was a sad story, because I feel like he was generally a nice person, just didn't know what he was doing, and I helped him. But like, it's still that kind of accountability when you take it to another place where it's like somebody's a jerk. Like it kind of takes away that people can be as mean as they want to be in a game. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, and I just love that, you know, server identity is coming back, because I think it's, and again, we've talked about like the opening of Ashes, right? Like, and how we can prevent all that stuff. And I know there's not a good short-term solution. There's not a really great long-term solution, but I think once we can get past the short-term mess, I am very excited for the future of Ashes and keeping server identity, because I don't like this hiding in shards and instances, and you know, it just makes the toxicity just way more rampant. But when there's accountability, because you belong to a server and people are expecting certain things from you, and to be treated like as a decent human being, like we're going to hold you accountable to that. And like you said, you can be a douche, but you're going to reap the consequences of being a douche in Ashes, you know, comparatively to other games where you can be a douche and there's no consequences at all, really. So
yeah, I like that return to accountability. I think it's really important, because I think it'll solve a lot of woes that are in a lot of other games that are just queue to play, you know?
Right.
Like I love playing Overwatch and League, but that's some of the most toxic places and spaces in gaming is the queue to PvP games.
Oh, for sure.
And it's become more prevalent in MMOs just because there's that anonymity because of those tools. And I can't wait to see, this probably sounds a little mean, but I can't wait to see people be held to account and then adjust. Like I'm hoping
that'll make us place. Oh, for sure.
Become better people. By force. Hopefully.
By force.
Well, nope. by you know, being held to account. Like hopefully they'll grow as people and be like, oh man, in this game I can't do whatever I want, you know, and behave as badly as I want.
Right. I mean, because again, like you can have a really bad time. Like if you're level 50, right, and you're over there like bad mouthing your guild leader, or you're just being an outright dick, like, you know, Angel Cry, who's our guild leader, can just be like, well, I'm going to report this to every guild master on our server, and you probably won't be invited to anything. And because there is no, or what Steven said, there's not going to be any server transfers, like, what are you going to do? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like that's
another fun thing to think about on that hopefully they don't let you get name changes very often either.
Oh
If
my
you think
god,
about it.
could you imagine if they didn't do that either? Bro.
I would say just make it a long cooldown. So if you change your name, like you can't
Right.
do it often. But I would like them to still be able to name change because you never know. Somebody might pick a name and then later be like, "Oh man, that name's really stupid." You know, I want to make something
Right.
more like cool.
I mean, you could potentially get a mulligan, but the other thing about it too is because now we live in a more sophisticated age, and this happened even back in 2007 when I was playing Burning Crusade, because name changes did happen back then. And when a person on the server became toxic, like I remember in Shrey chat, they were basically posting, this person used to be named this person, this guy is an a-hole, don't invite him to your groups, and da 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 da. And then one of the guild leaders would be like, oh yeah, he was on my blacklist, I'll put this new name on my blacklist. And it's just like, people will like rat you out, like, you know. So sometimes there is no hiding, you know what I mean?
But yeah, and that's one of the other things too, though. It's interesting. If you want a fresh start, you literally have to like move in the game. Like that would be wild. You know what I mean?
It's like, I was a dick in California, now I gotta move to Texas. It's like, you know?
Yeah, you'll be able to do that in the game. It's gonna be so wild. I do think, like, as far as regions are gonna go, it's gonna probably feel like a small world. And I can't imagine that anybody has something like a blacklist. I mean, sure, I'm sure there's some people who will, but like, I think ultimately, I think people are just more savvy. Like guild leaders are more savvy when they're like, they realize they used to be in a guild. They all talk, I'm sure, right? So they just kind of like it's like leaning over in class and be like, what's the story with them again? They were one of yours, right?
Right.
And they're like, yeah, no, I wouldn't do that if I were you, but you do you know. They might like them, or they'd be more your fit. Like that's kind of
Right.
how I imagine it goes. I'm sure there's some guilds who are 110% like we have blacklists, and it's like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people work that way as much, unless you're so big. Like as their guild would probably need that because there's no way you could keep track otherwise, right?
So, I mean, and again, the reason why those blacklists happen is because they, like, not saying, oh, you're on a blacklist, you're never invited to anything. But if a guild did wanted to invite you in, they would not treat you like a normal trial. You know, there's like a heftier, I guess, you know, return, you know, that you would have to put into the guild, the dedication you want to put in. You know what I mean? And if you betray that guild and it goes, now it's gonna be like, all right, I reach out back to the person that blacklisted this person originally, say, man, you were totally right. He was in our guild for 4 months. He was like a perfect person. And then he did this. And it's like, yep, that's what happened to us too. You know, and then you can just, you know, say that to the other guild leaders and stuff like that. So it's at the end of the day, it's just to promote that accountability. People may get away with it once. I don't think you're going to get away with it twice. So
I mean, I think it's totally going to be wild when the servers just go live and guilds, you know, like get going. And I think it's going to be wild to see how many people have that adjustment phase to that level of accountability. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
No, for sure.
I'm going to be there with my popcorn and my tea, ready to go.
So, just to kind of wrap up our conversation, because again, like I always say, it's been an hour, and every time I talk to people from, you know, Axiom or just anybody in general about Ashes, like it just flies by like in 10 minutes for me mentally. So what do you feel? Because, you know, I always either ask a couple of questions towards the end. I'll say something like, oh, like, how do you feel about Ashes of Creation? Like, what's like the biggest strength Ashes has? What do you think is the most worrying to you? I'll let you decide. Like, is there any final things you want to talk about or things you want to mention before we sign off?
Think, yeah, I guess my big thing is I'm most excited for the node system. I think that speaks for itself for anybody who's in the know who'd be watching this. Like,
for sure.
A game that is different at every server, has a reputation, has regions that have their own stories, you know? That's amazing. And a game that responds to player input, that's just wild. Like, I can't believe we haven't had it before, but the fact that we haven't, I think players are just gonna be bowled over by it. And then looking to the future, one of the things I haven't seen yet in development that I'd like to see is some incentivizing for getting to know the people you're playing with.
Okay.
And I mean that from like you kind of hit on it with like the character creation thing in D&D. When people make characters in the game, have them select like a backstory. They don't have to like type one out, right? Like make it fields they can select drop downs on or whatever. And then like when you get into a party, I always had this thing, looking for group only in the tavern. Like you can like looking for group systems only in that local tavern, and it only functions while you're in there. So you go and your character, they said you can have rest XP if you rent a room. So you go post on the board in the tavern, and then you go rent a room, and it's like you and your buddies, and you can play like a mini game that they said they're already going to have. And then somebody else can walk up to the board and queue to be in your party, but they can only do it from the same tavern, right? From the same node.
Right.
Walking in the same, and they'd all have only like one tavern or whatever. And then the idea is then before you leave, you get some little buff, and it picks one random character out of the party that everybody has to like talk to gets asked one question, and they just have to answer it right. And it's something out of their character sheet that they created in their biography. Like, I think like that would be cool. And it could be a really teeny tiny buff, like, I don't know, 5% more experience on killed creatures or something, nothing a big deal. But I just want something to promote people actually interacting with each other rather than, and it's just an idea, an example. I want like there to be, we already have interdependency in design. I want there to be socialization in design.
Right. No, I think that's a great idea. Honestly, I'd be down, because I know in City of Heroes, when you were creating your character, there was a 500 character limit for your character's bio. Like, yeah, I would not mind that at all. Like, coming from D&D, I think that would actually be really cool to see, like, especially because I
think they'd have to have like drop downs or something, so you could like pick pre-generated stuff, kind of thing.
I think it could be both, personally. Like, I think if you want to be creative,
I just mean for like the buff mechanism, they'd have to be
yeah, for sure.
But if they don't have a biography section, Steven said he's an avid Pathfinder player. If he doesn't have that, Steven, we need to talk. Like, you need to put that in there,
bro.
There needs to be a biography part you can put in.
Yes, like I really want the character stat sheet to be really cool looking. I want it to feel like a profile, like not like a dating profile or anything like that, but just like a profile with a bunch of things you can look at other than just gear, right? Like that's I want it to be a little bit more like I don't know, just like a profile. I don't know how else to describe it. Like a resume,
and that's where I think like not only doing that, but then having it have an in-game mechanism for people to engage with it.
Right.
And it gives you like a buff. Everybody wants a buff, so they'll do the work as long as it's not a lot. That's why you have it pick one person in the party, and the rest have to like ask the person that question and select the right answer or something.
Right.
I don't know how that'd work, but that's just like an idea I spitballed the other day talking to a couple of people in Axiom, and I was like, that sounds like so much fun. And there's forum posts on this stuff too. So.
Right. Well, Leukael, dude, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and having a chat with me, because I don't know, I like talking with you. I like talking with everybody from Axiom. I think everybody has really great ideas, and I think with with Fane's fireside chats for Ashes, I mean, I really enjoy those. In the past two, I've had to leave early because of like things that my wife wanted me to do, and
I feel like in Axiom we always have really good chats about Ashes, though. I feel like in the last couple months they've been particularly good for some reason, but I think it's just because like we're getting more
wrapping up. Yeah.
Well, we're getting more information, and it's giving like us prompts to think in new directions, to
for sure.
ponder in new ways.
Yeah, for sure. And so I usually ask at the end, like, do you have a Twitter? Do you see where people can follow you, or you just want me to say, if you want to talk to Leukael, join Axiom? Like, what do you?
Yeah. I mean, if you ever see somebody named Leukael, Leukael, it's probably me. It's a super rare name.
Yeah.
But
so is Kadajus.
I play WoW. I play Overwatch. Any MMO, if you see a healer named that, it's probably me. Say hi. But I don't have a whole lot of social media for people to consume. Yeah, no, if I ever dive into it, I'll let you know. But thank you for your time too.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Like I said, I hope if you are a person that hasn't belonged to a guild, like I would really, stress to find a guild. I'm not saying just come to Axiom. Like if you want to come to Axiom, great. Like I'm not going to stop you, but I really do incentivize right now to find a group of people that you enjoy playing with, because now is the best time. Like, because for me, when you're already in a game and the game's already established and the guild's established because of that singular game, like you're not really going to know players' personalities and like how they are as people, like because they're going to be talking game jargon and just game stuff and game mechanics. Right now is the best time to see if you actually mesh with a group of people, so that when you get in game, you already know these people. And that's why I did it, because I wasn't going to join a guild, and then I decided, you know what, I think I should join a guild, and it was the best decision I made. So
yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about you should look now so you find the best group that meets your needs and is the best fit for you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Leukael. Like I said, I had a great chat talking with you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And guys, if you like this episode of the 1v1 podcast, please hit that like button, share it around in Discord with your friends to, share the podcast out. Again, I'm your host, Vlhadus. That's Leukael. This is the 1v1 podcast, and we will see you guys in the next one.